Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday morning for the first installment of the new Civic Leadership and Service Series for the Maurice A. Ferré Institute for Civic Leadership in the Stephen J. Green School of International Public Affairs at Florida International University. I am thrilled to be reporting here from our FIU at I-75 location in the beautiful city of Miramar, and joined with a fantastic panel of civic leaders from the city of Miramar. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited about today's conversation. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar yet with the Maurice A. Ferré Institute for Civic Leadership, we're excited to tell you all about it and the new initiatives that we're going to be having, focusing on civic engagement and leadership, community infrastructure, and social justice. And we're really excited for today's discussion. And I'm going to start by introducing today's moderator, Sergeant Shaw. Welcome. Sorry, Sergeant Shaw, you're muted.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Carvalho. Hello and good morning, FIU patrons, special guests, and the Miramar community. My name is Sergeant Shaw Williams with the Miramar Police Department, and Dr. Carvalho, on behalf of the city of Miramar and our interim chief, Leonard Burgess, we just graciously thank you so much for this opportunity to share our knowledge and leadership with your FIU family. With that being said, I am an internal affairs investigator with the City of Miramar Police Department, but I'm also the Community Relations and Outreach Director. And my primary goal is to build relationships and partnerships with community stakeholders and organizations such as FIU. Now, I would like to pass the mic to our esteemed Assistant City Manager, Mrs. Sean Gale, for introduction.
Good morning, everyone. It's certainly great to be here this morning with my peers from the city of Miramar, and it's awesome to be on this platform. I am Sean Gale. I am an Assistant City Manager for the city of Miramar. I am also the city's spokesperson, so I wear many hats. I started in the city of Miramar in 1998, and throughout the years, I've assumed increasingly great responsibilities throughout the time. And at this time, I think it is very important to consider the role that I play and to be on this platform for civic leadership. As I sit as an assistant city manager and spokesperson, it is critical that I remember the town of Surfside, what they're going through. And I'm thinking of this from an assistant city manager standpoint and a spokesperson standpoint. And so when we consider civic leadership, it encompasses not just our day-to-day, but it encompasses what's going on in the community, what's going on nationally, what's going on in our state, our county, how does it affect us? And I am so, so grateful to be able to sit in that seat and to share this morning on this platform. So I look forward to this conversation with everyone this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, City Manager Sean Gale. Next, we will have our incomparable Major Shalita Smith with the Miramar Police Department.
Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here this morning. I know it's Saturday and you guys could have probably found 1,000 better things to do, but I thank you for taking the opportunity to come listen and share with us this morning. I've been with the beautiful city of Miramar for about 25 years now, 21 of those years being in law enforcement. As the assistant city manager mentioned, I too wear many hats, from hiring and recruitment to segment of human resources, as well as emergency management, as well as our accreditation, public policy and planning. So as you can see, we all wear many hats, and that is a facet of civic leadership in state and local government, as well as federal government as well. And as I sit here today, I too give pause for the victims and also the survivors of Surfside. Sitting here as a police executive, we too think about what's happening around the nation, what's happening in our sister cities, and what is our role. And oftentimes what we like to do is take these real life scenarios and try and apply them to our current situation in the event that we are faced with those situations as well. So a large part of our job is certainly to be aware and to forecast and from the public safety perspective to make sure that our residents in our city of Miramar feel that they have a sense of safety and security, and that we are aware and we do take our job seriously. So I thank you all for being here. I am so looking forward to the Q&A. And so please help us so that this can be a memorable moment and enjoyable. So thank you all for being here this morning.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Major. Next, we have our wonderful Employee Relations Director, Tanil DeCosti.
Good morning, everyone, and I am so excited to be here as well. This is a great opportunity. I am the Division Director of Civil Rights and Employee Labor Relations, and under my umbrella, I deal with civil rights, employee labor relations, diversity inclusion, training and development, all the fun stuff, to make sure our employees are safe and make sure that we are following policy and procedure, and if in looking at all the state, local, and federal laws. I do also pray for those at Surfside, especially the firefighters that are out there, looking for God willing survivors. And I know that they're going through a lot emotionally, and from a human resources point of view, I pray that they have the support system out there. And I'm sure if they don't, Miramar will send our team or our EAP team, which is Employee Assistance Program, to help them. So thank you for being here, and we appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, we have author and the Director of Cultural Arts, Director Kamasha Sylvia.
Thank you, Sergeant Shaw, and thank you to the audience. Thank you to my FIU family. That is my alumni, so I am excited to be here and a part of this panel and a part of these esteemed colleagues that I have. One of the key things I must say is that I oversee a department that really means a lot to our community. It is the Department of Cultural Affairs. And their slogan is where community and culture converge. And when you think about that, and you think about Surfside, and you think about not only just the first responders, which are key to this process, that we, our hearts go out to, I'm probably the only civilian in my family. All my family is in law enforcement. And so naturally I go right there, but being the civilian and the government executive, I know the role that we play to bring each other together at the table. In the Miramar Cultural Center is ground zero for congregation. And if we had a disaster of that magnitude, we would play a key role in the socialization aspect of that. So I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful to talk about my 19 plus years in government, which has been a progressive run. I'm thankful to talk about what the Cultural Center means and what the city has invested in and how it's going to actually make sense. It is a legacy piece for people to look at, which makes Miramar special and has made us, and I know we haven't talked about it yet, on All-American 2021 All-American City. So I'm glad to be here, and thank you again for having me a part of this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So to our FIU family, community members, and the city of Miramar, you have a unique opportunity to engage top-tier executives whose primary goal every day is to serve their residents. Today, we would like for you all to walk away with a unique and dynamic aspect of civic leadership through the eyes of different civic leaders from different departments, all with the same goal: take care of the community. Our first question will be a roundhouse question to all of the panelists, and I'm going to ask you specifically. I think a lot of you answered this question already, which is wonderful in your intros, but just to get a little more specific, and we're going to start with our ACM Shangel. What are the core values of civic leadership as it pertains to your position?
So Sergeant Shaw, as it pertains to my position, again, as an assistant city manager where I sit, I have a broad global, if you will, responsibility over the entire organization. So, integrity is critical because you have 1,200 employees who are depending on the fact that what you say is what you mean, and it will mean the same thing today, tomorrow, and next week. Commitment is also important because you have to be committed to organizational growth. You have to be committed to employee improvement and development. You have to be committed to providing to residents what you need to provide as a city. Advocacy is also important because you kind of need to always be advocating for something, whether it's diversity and inclusion, whether it's, quality services to our residents, whether it's getting more programs and services into the city through grants. You kind of always have to be advocating for something. That's what makes your job relevant to some extent. And lastly, I'd like to mention mentorship, because like I said, I've been in the city of Miramar since 1998. And what would that journey mean if it doesn't allow you to turn around and reach for someone, or turn around and mentor someone, or turn around and provide some kind of encouragement and leadership to someone who's traveling that same journey? So a lot of the times we are in uncharted waters and we think, oh, woe is me. But then we need to just stop and realize that journey that you're going through needs to be relevant to someone who comes after you. So I do believe that mentorship is a critical component of civic leadership.
Wonderful, wonderful. Major Smith?
ID followed by pound.
Good morning again. One of the things that I think we're going to notice in answering these questions, a lot of our responses will overlap. And that's what we find in civic leadership. We all have our own individual areas, but a lot of what we do and the core values are very similar for the same reasons, but in different areas. So in terms of public safety, the top and fundamental core value for us is integrity. The community demands it of us. We know that we're held to a higher standard. And so everything that we do has to be above reproach. The community would not accept anything less. The second thing would be safety and security. Every resident wants to feel safe in their environment, and they want to feel secure. The next thing that we're also tasked with and that we have to pay homage to is, and the city manager mentioned it, assistant city manager, is diversity and inclusion. We want a police department that is representative of our community. So we owe it to our residents to make sure that when we are out seeking qualified talent, that it is representative of the community, so that the community feels a sense of security when they're interacting with their police officers. Also, we want to foster positive relationships with the community. We cannot provide public safety services without the community. They're our second set of eyes and ears, and we also have to be a part of the community. We also want to be the voice for the voiceless. Many people are voiceless. They don't know what they should do. They don't know if they could reach out. And so we become that voice. Also, we have to hold ourselves accountable. We hold the residents accountable. We hold our citizens accountable. We have to be held accountable. We are a citizen. We are a resident. And so we're not above the law. And so again, accountability. Also, building community, one interaction at a time. We've seen the public narrative. Definitely there's a strain between police and community relations. And so how do we fix that? One interaction at a time. It seems like a daunting task, but it is something that we can overcome. But every interaction is important for us. And also planning and forecasting, as we talked about, like with incidents such as Surfside, incidents such as at our Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, we learn from our mistakes and we learn how to move forward. And last two things is certainly dedication. You have to be dedicated to do this job. There are many days where you're not home with your family, you're missing Thanksgiving, you're missing Christmas, you're missing your children's birthdays and special family events, but it takes a dedicated person to do that. And last, but certainly not least, we owe it to our residents to be responsive. And that's one thing that the City of Miramar prides themselves on, is being responsive to our residents. Any time of the day or night, we're always available. So those are the core values from the public safety perspective.
Thank you so much, Major Smith. Director DeCoste?
Yes, thank you for that question. Our biggest thing in human resources is diversity and inclusion. That is first. We want to make sure everybody's at the table. It should not matter if you're at a lower level or all the way at the top in the city manager's level. Everybody should be equal. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. So if we have a woman working in one position or similar position to a man, we want to make sure the pay is equal. That's very important. We want to make sure an employee feels safe to come to work. You know, PD makes sure that our residents are safe and our employees. Well, we want to make sure our employees have a place they can go to if they're having issues. They can come to HR and express, hey, this is what's going on, and they want to see action with no retaliation going back against them. So safety is important to our employees. We also, I agree with ACM Gail and Major Shalita, integrity is very important. Human resources, we deal with a lot of investigations. We deal with a lot of policy and procedure. So integrity and being ethical is very, very important in human resources. That's about it. And also serving the public. I love serving the public. In the positions that these lovely ladies are in, we've been serving the public for years. I'm the youngest one here in the city. I've been only with the city 5 years, but I have about 19 years in government. So being a public servant is very important.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And Director Sevilla, how would you like to respond to that answer? What are your core values?
Well, the core values is ones that we share. And again, I'm the last of the Mohicans in this line, I must agree with Major Smith that, we're going to overlap. Ideally, the spaces that we sit in, we touch each other. So the ethics is key. Consistency is key. I agree with ACM Gail. Because again, people have to know where they're coming from. They have to know that things aren't changing constantly in order for them to follow suit, leading from where you are. So, and I mean that it doesn't matter what level you contribute when you talk about being in contribution to this organization, that you have spaces to lead. And I mean that from even our docent that sits, for example, in the cultural center, she knows everything about every exhibit that walks in there. And she could probably walk you blindly through and that's because of the passion that she has. And I consider that leading from the positions that they're in. So no man is an island. It's not because we're at a higher level that no one less than us can contribute. And I think that's key. That is a key, that has a lot to do with the morale of the organization. And then you start seeing the foundation of the things that we're talking about, the core. Then you can really see the core if you have those things intact. So again, I echo everything that my colleagues said, but just to highlight those little key pieces those details are very, very important for the organization to not only stand today, but to prosper and show some level of continuity and sustainability. Those words, continuity and sustainability, are going to be key, because if you don't have that, then you have, you have a broken organization.
Sergeant Shaw, you're muted.
For some reason, your audio doesn't seem to be working.
No.
While we're working out the inevitable technical issues, I want to just take this opportunity real quick to acknowledge our partners in today's event before we continue. So again, thank you so much to the City of Miramar, to the Miramar Police Department. If you notice in the chat, I did post the full bios, and in the full bios, you'll also see an ad, a recruitment flyer for the Miramar Police Department in there. I'd also like to give thanks to the Florida Department of Public Policy and Administration, the Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice, African Diaspora Studies Program, the FIU Center for Leadership, the FIU Office of Social Justice and Inclusion, the National Forum for Black Public Administrators, South Florida Chapter, as well as the South Florida Chapter of the American Society for Public Administration, and last but not least, the Jorge M. Perez Metropolitan Center. Thank you again to our partners and sponsors. You have audio back?
Awesome. Am I back? FIU's fantastic IT tech department. Thank you so much for getting me back in. So what I wanted to touch on is that now that we got the core values of all of our different leaders, I hope that the audience can see that really it ultimately lands into the same goal. It falls within the same department, despite the titles, despite what building you work for or where you belong. Our ultimate goal is to serve the community. And also, too, thanks to Tanil, to serve our employees. Thank you. ACM Gail, I would like to start off with another question for you. Just as an assistant city manager, based on your experience, what are some of the most pressing issues that municipalities in urban and metropolitan areas face? And with that being said, what is the one thing your municipality did very well, and how would you ensure it becomes a repeatable process?
Wow, Sergeant Shaw, that's a very loaded question, and thank you for that. Talking about urban and metropolitan cities, as Director Sylvia mentioned, the city of Miramar was just named an All-America city. So you know that we touch a lot of facets of the community. One of the most pressing things that municipalities face, believe it or not, is housing that's affordable to the workforce. Many people drive miles to come to work because they can't afford to live where they work. And that is a critical issue that municipalities need to address. And I know that municipalities have addressed that in different ways, through housing programs, through rental assistance, through, down payment assistance. They've done different things over the years. However, it still seems to be an issue that is so hard to overcome because of the price of real estate, and it keeps going up. South Florida is a very expensive place to live. And so the city of Miramar must face and tackle head on the issue of housing and allowing housing to remain affordable for those who actually own a home. A second issue that we have to deal with is pension liability. When you talk about pensions, you're thinking of your workforce that has retired. So you're paying your current workforce and you're paying your retired workforce. That pension liability is a real liability, and any municipality that you talk to is going to be faced with that challenge, and you have to be poised and ready to make sure that you're tackling that issue and being able to pay your current workforce and your past workforce. Another critical issue I wanted to talk about is community engagement. We're living in the age of social media. There is no lag time. There is no, it happened yesterday, so we'll find out today. Everything is instantaneous. And so municipalities are faced with the issue of how do you keep your community engaged and engaged correctly, because different people digest information in different ways. And so we have to understand that in an effort to be accountable and to be transparent to those that we serve, we have to make sure that we are on top of communication and proper communication, making sure correct information is going out to the community. So to tackle the issue of what is one thing that Miramar did well this year and how can we make sure it's a repeat of the process, I don't know that we can talk about this year without talking about COVID-19. And so one thing that the city of Miramar did from a standpoint of tackling COVID-19 was we adapted. We adapted and we adapted instantaneously because we have a responsibility to a workforce and to a community to keep them safe. And so regardless of people's concept of what COVID was and their belief in how they needed to react to COVID, the city of Miramar had a responsibility to adapt and to make sure that we lead. So how did we lead? We formed a task force. That task force looked at different aspects of the pandemic and how do we keep our workforce safe, understanding that while we went to teleworking, public safety could not telework. So what do we do to protect public safety? And while we teleworked, there are different facets of the community that was reopening. Childcare for people who had to go to work, who did not have the luxury of teleworking, who worked in healthcare, who worked in certain areas of hospitality that they had to be there. So what did we do? We had to do a phased reopening of childcare services. and to make sure that we were keeping the children safe and or childcare staff. We had to harden buildings. We had to create screening protocol and stations, UV lights in AC for our buildings, signs in specific areas. Marketing and public engagement was one of those things that you had to make sure the public knew where you were going and how to follow you there. Moving public meetings to a virtual platform and allowing the community to engage in the civic life that they're supposed to be able to engage in regardless of a pandemic. And then coining a phased reopening of city facilities and services and adhering to strict guidelines to, again, keep staff safe and keep the public safe. So what would I do to make sure that this is a repeatable process? The way I would ensure that is to make sure that we are always planning and innovate and being innovative. Make sure that we're at the forefront of any issue that comes to us and being flexible and knowing that the response to one issue may not necessarily be the response to another issue, but most importantly, how do you change? It's like turning a big ship around. You have 1,200 employees. So how do you change to make sure all the components of your operation is able to change with you? And so that's how I would make sure that's repeatable. Always being in a planning mode, always being in an innovative mode to make sure that you can change when you need to and in the appropriate way.
Wow, thank you so much, ACM Gal. I may have to steal that answer one day. I don't know what important platform I'm gonna be on, but if you hear me repeat that again, okay, the author came from ACM Gal. There's a quote that says, "The measure of intelligence is the ability to change." And I was expecting a lot of responses, but whoa, you just knocked it out of the water. And I think that in order to make that a repeatable process, because it was a success, everyone should take that, ACM Gale. Phenomenal adaptability. Okay, my next question will go to panelist Major Smith. Now, Major Smith, we're living in a world today, it will be impossible to host any type of civic leader panelship without addressing social justice, especially in the year of 2020. So my question to you will be, considering the public's outcry and protest over the past year for social justice reform in the criminal justice system, what role do you believe civic leadership play in cultivating social justice? And with that being said, what actions have you taken within your agency to adjust protest for change?
So as we sit here today, one of the common themes or words that I keep hearing is civic leadership. And I think it's important to define exactly what leadership is. And I think Director Savul mentioned it earlier, where you have to lead from wherever you are. Everyone within the organization, they have something to offer. But in addition to leadership, it also requires you to be inclusive. That means that we have to bring other people to the table. Because sitting in this seat, you may think that you have all of the answers because you understand the theory, but what's important is the practicality of it. How do you apply it, and how do you make sure that it's something that our residents want, need, and understand? And oftentimes, I think that's where we as leaders in public safety or civic leadership, sometimes we miss the mark. And so an important part of leadership is, again, learning from your mistakes, being able to acknowledge where you missed the mark, and then make an attempt to right the ship. One of the fundamental things about social justice is for civic leaders to truly acknowledge, realize, and understand the role that race, power, and injustice plays in impeding social justice. Until we're ready to have a real conversation, it's going to be very difficult for us to lead. And why is that? Because again, residents demand it of us. And if we don't give the residents what they need in terms of a sense of safety and security for those that are supposed to be the authority, then they're not going to grant us the authority to be a legitimate operating force to protect and serve them in the manner in which they need to be served. It's also amazing that as we sit here today, that you selected 4 beautiful women, intelligent women, my colleagues here, to talk about civic leadership. And what I want to point out in this structure is that we are truly an ecosystem. I can't survive without the assistant city manager. The assistant city manager can't survive without the police. The police can't survive without human resources. Human resources can't survive without cultural arts, because we're all intertwined. We all need each other. We're just a big conglomerate, and we feed off of each other. We cannot work independently. And if we tried to do that, I think it would be an epic fail, because we will certainly miss the mark. Federal government takes the lead role in a lot of things that we do in terms of leadership, but then they also defer to state and local government, which is what we consider ourselves, local government. We also have to look at our criminal justice systems, and I'm talking about these ecosystems and how they all work together and the role that they play in terms of, again, race, power, and injustice. How is the criminal justice system applied? Is it applied justly? Would be, I think, the appropriate word. Social services. Do we actually have the services in the right place? Is funding in the right place? We've heard since George Floyd, we've heard a lot about defunding the police. Perhaps some of the school of thought is, yes, let's take money away from the police. We don't need an occupying police force, if you will. But I also think that a lot of the cry in defunding the police is perhaps that we should dedicate or reallocate some of the funding from police to the appropriate social services, such as mental health. We often miss the mark on that. As police officers, are we trained to deal with instances of mental health? Yes, but not to the magnitude of a person that actually has a degree, a higher level degree to deal with mental health. So wouldn't it be amazing if we had a team of experts that would be able to go out and deal with these incidents? I think it would decrease our chances for mishandling those types of incidents, and then having a happy ending where the person is able to get the help that they need. So I don't think when the community is saying defund the police, I think it's just, we really need to do an autopsy, if you will, of how we are applying funds to certain social services or not, and looking at how we can reallocate it to get the best bang for our buck. Also, education. You know, we expect for our children to grow up and they will assume these seats one day, one shape, form, fashion, or another, whether it's here in civic leadership, public safety, in the private industry, but they are going to be the productive members of society that will keep us moving forward. And so if we don't take the time and the money to invest in education, then again, I think we're gonna miss the mark. What are our future leaders going to look like, and how are we equipping them to move forward and take the helm? Secondly, we have a fundamental duty to provide workforce readiness. I think our city is doing an awesome job. I know there was a new initiative that went out with internships in the city, where our elected officials were very big on providing internships. Why? Because our residents, our kids, our young adults, they are our future. We're not going to be here forever. So it's our job, again, to equip them with the tools that they need to be successful. But as you can see, all of these different subsystems work together. In those subsystems, I just want to go back and touch on criminal justice, right? So as police, we have the ultimate authority, right? We can take someone's civil liberty at the drop of a dime. And if you don't have a heart and if you don't have true understanding, then you don't think about the long-term impact of you arresting someone, taking their civil liberties away. Those are overarching long-term consequences when you do that. So I think as law enforcement, we also have to take a moment of pause when we do that and understand the power that we have. To combat that, some of the things that we have done, the police department particularly, we have adopted the juvenile civil citation program. So that means if a juvenile commits a crime, we have discretion. We don't have to take the juvenile to jail. We can enter them into a diversion program. It doesn't become a part of their record, so that we are not creating long-term consequences for something that they may not be aware of or understand the gravity of a situation. We also have that for adults as well, the adult civil citation program. Oftentimes we give less thought to adults, but keep in mind, we don't understand a person's walk in life. We don't understand their journey. And so we have to be not always warriors, but we also have to be the guardians of these individuals that just may need a little bit of guidance and a little bit of compassion. The other thing that we've done as an agency, we invest in making sure that we are providing the gold standard of service. So how do we know what the gold standard is? Well, we have two agencies on the federal level. There is CLIA, they're accrediting agencies, and on the state level, there's CFA. They have certain standards and benchmarks that we as an agency have to prove that we are practicing every day. Not just putting it in policy, but policy is one, but we actually have to show that we are performing this standard each and every day. They come in and they conduct assessments, and it's a report card for us. And I'm proud to say that we just got reaccredited, I believe, for our 25th year for CLIA. And most agencies don't have that accreditation. Some do, but most don't, not for a 25-year term. But what you invest in shows what's important to you. So what's important to us is that, again, we have a workforce that our residents and the city managers team, as well as our elected officials, can be proud of. And we know that we are keeping up with the national standard, and we are also given the gold standard. And I must say that this is just such a packed question. So I did have to make some notes here. The other thing that we did when President Barack Obama was in office, we adopted the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. And it's really common sense information, but it's nice when you can actually solidify it and you make it part of a report, and we're holding agencies accountable to deliver these services to the city, because it creates some sort of continuity and uniformity. And in that 21st century policing, for those of you that may not be aware, there are truly 6 pillars. The one pillar that I personally like the most, and it's the first pillar, is building trust and legitimacy within the community. Building trust and legitimacy within the community. I mentioned earlier that legitimacy is established by our community. They're either going to allow you to be that legitimate force or they're not. But it happens because of the trust or lack thereof. And so how do you do that? Through programming, one interaction at a time. We have the Police Explorer programs for the youth. We also have community policing teams where we have one police officer assigned to each geographic area within our city. But it's not just about that team. It becomes a part of the culture where we all take ownership in how we provide services to our residents. But the reason that we've established a team is because we found that there's value in having one person that a resident can reach out to if they have a concern in their community, and that one person is going to make sure that the person is going to get the answer that they need by facilitating it. Also, procedural justice, that's a big thing. Procedural justice is not just an internal aspect or an external, it covers both. The procedures that we're applying, are they just? Are we treating each other fairly as colleagues in law enforcement? And are we treating our residents fairly? How is it perceived? Are we treating each race the same? Are we treating the juveniles the same? Or are we just haphazardly applying practices? That's something that you don't want to do, because if you're not applying procedural justice and you're not being just, then again, it leads back to that the community will not allow you to be legitimate. Also, policy and oversight. This is very, very important. You have to have your residents involved. You have to be transparent in terms of policy and oversight. The mayor did a great job. He put together a policy group that actually reviewed all of our policies after the George Floyd incident. And I was elated to know that for the most part, with a few tweaks, they came back and said that, yes, you guys have the correct policies in place to make sure that we don't have a repeat of what we've seen across the nation. Technology and social media. Assistant City Manager mentioned it perfectly. We have to communicate with our residents. They want to know instantaneously. There should not be a delay. It's their community, and it lends itself again to safety and public perception. Body worn cameras, we've seen that. We now have those. When it first started, some agencies were hesitant to have body worn cameras because they just didn't understand the true effects of it. But now we see that body worn cameras, it does have a great value. It can identify when officers have made mistakes, but it can also identify when officers have done something right. So it's there as a protective measure for not only the residents, but as well as the police department. I'm not going to touch on each pillar, but last but not least, I just want to touch on officer wellness and safety. You know, when you come here and you do this job every day, or you come on, you're bright-eyed and you're just so excited. But a lot of the things that you see and a lot of the encounters that you have, they're not always pleasant. And so you don't understand how that actually affects your psyche. And so we owe it to ourselves to always do those mental health checkups, because again, we're charged for going out and providing these same services to the community. And so we have to make sure that we're healthy as well. And so that we can return home to our families at the end of the night. And then also our department, we were the first department on the south end of Broward County to engage in the restorative justice program, which my lovely Sergeant Shaw is a part of that program, where children are actually able, children that have gotten into some trouble, it's like a diversion program, they're actually able to come together in round table discussions and talk about concerns that they've had with the police, but also address victims of crime that they may have wronged, to right their wrongs, if you will. And again, this is just another diversion method in terms of, you know, not actually arresting them and giving them a record for the rest of their life, but giving them an opportunity to move in the right direction. And last but not least, just for the sake of time, and I mean, I can go on and on and on, but just for the sake of time, one of the things that I do want to point out, we've also adopted the 8 Can't Wait. A lot of you have probably heard about 8 Can't Wait. We do have that in our policy. And essentially what the 8 Can't Wait says is that police officers will not engage in chokeholds or strangleholds. Police are required to participate in de-escalation training. And so again, it's that guardian versus warrior mentality. Sometimes, yeah, you do have to be a warrior depending on certain situations, but every day when you come out, you should really consider yourselves to be that guardian and try to de-escalate these situations as best you can. We're not allowed to shoot from moving vehicles. Why? Obviously, it creates a hazard for the community at large. And also, more importantly, we have a duty to intervene. We owe it to ourselves to intervene when we see our colleagues not doing the right thing. There should not be a thin blue wall or a thick blue wall or any wall of the sorts. The only wall that we should have is a wall of honor and integrity. And so those are just a few things from the 8 Can't Wait. But I will close with this and just say, we do pride ourselves on training. In order to maintain our certification, we have to have 40 hours every 4 years. But our police department, we actually do 30 hours of training each and every year. And that makes, and that helps us to be a better public safety agency. It also insulates us in terms of liability. And I'm sure our elected officials, our assistant city manager, the city manager and his team, that they certainly welcome it. Again, I could go on and on, but I know we still have my two other colleagues that have to add to this conversation. But it is a packed question, but I will certainly be open to take questions at the end. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Major Smith. That was profound. Based on your answer, it looks like we got an ecosystem inside of an ecosystem at the police department. But thank you so much for touching on that, Major. And it was something that you said that really stood out is our ecosystem, that we cannot exist without each other. And that's one of the things that I'm so proud the panelists are presenting well. Just on, despite being in different departments, it's the same goal. It's the same support. It's the same core values. Thank you so much for that, Major. And actually, you segue on something that will be great for Director DeCoste, which was about wellness and dealing with our officers and as employees for mental health and wellness. So we're going to move over to Director DeCoste. For you, the city recently passed an ordinance on the Commission of the Status of Women to be led by the Division of Civil Rights and Employee Labor Relations. What are the commission's priorities as you lead it? And also, as the Director of Civil Rights and Employee Relations, can you tell me how does educating the workforce relates to great diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Okay, thank you for that question. And am I so excited for this commission? So first off, Yvette, our Vice Mayor, Yvette Colburn, she's the one who implemented the commission, the status of women. We are the first city in Broward County, and then other cities followed suit. So the commission is made up of 5 women, and it was established to identify and resolve economic, health, and social and other issues. What do they look for? They look for equal and fair treatment for women. Now, I also wrote a book, and in my book, I talk about women, the struggles of breaking through the glass ceiling. And it's so unfair as women to climb up the ladder, get kicked back down, climb up the ladder again. We have so much to, we have to fight through everything just to stay up at the ladder and break through the glass ceiling. So one thing that I oversee is this commission, and they're going to look at that we have fair and equal treatment between men and women. We're also looking at policy and procedures that need to be implemented. We also look at, we have to ensure that any public or private, and this includes our residents, that services are given to them. It shouldn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you should get the same services. We're looking at our working and living conditions for our community and our employees. So they're going to be advocating for women, they're going to be advocating for employees, and advocating for our residents. Again, it's so important to me as a woman that I reach out to like my colleagues and put my hand down there if I'm in a position and pull them up the ladder. Because one thing I've learned working at Miami-Dade County, working at City of Delray Beach, I didn't have that one person that pulled me up the ladder. I had to climb myself. And it's so unfortunate that we have so many women in this city that, don't get that opportunity or was given that opportunity and then was kicked down. So I'm so happy for this commission. You don't understand. If I can do a cartwheel on this video, I would. I'm so excited for this because they're going to advocate, they're going to push policy, and I know the commission's going to follow through. We have to follow through. They're going to educate. They're going to review all the data. And, we already started reviewing some. And, just to give an example, we have some women making 80 cents on a dollar compared to a man, same position or similar position that's making 90 cents on a dollar. So that's going to be fixed. So that's one of the big opportunities that I can't wait to skip around the city like, hey, we got you, women. You're not going to be struggling anymore. You're going to move up that ladder. We have you. I'm sorry. The second question, what is the benefit? The biggest benefit, it's going to focus on the needs of the woman that's been neglected or wasn't important before. It's important now. It's always important. And I'm not disregarding men. It's just, I feel like we have a glass ceiling that we have to break through. And, you know, it's great to see other cities, for example, that
Okay. Oh, it looks like we're having technical difficulties, but welcome to the age of technology and webinars and Zoom, family. I don't think there's anyone on here who's not used to this.
have to feel
So-
like, oh my gosh, I'm a
Okay. Well, what did you say, ACM Gail? You said adaptability, right? Adapt.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I just want to chime in real quick. So I want to say how proud our Department of Public Policy Administration at FIU is to be working with the City of Miramar on your mapping HR processes, you know, applied research project, and just really want to applaud you for taking the initiative to improve your processes and allowing FIU to be a part of that research project and be able to provide training and guidance.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Caravallo. Well, I just spoke to Director DeCosti, and she's all good, and she's really happy with her answer. She said the most part she wanted to get her excitement about girl power, which I think looking at this panel, we know exactly what that is. So thank you so much, Director DeCosti. So our next question will go to our fourth panelist, and Director Sevilla, my question for you is, and I just love this ecosystem and everything like that. I think Major Smith, you brought this full circle. You brought this full circle. Even for myself, I am learning so much. And you just allowed me, and you taught me really how to describe this entire panel in the most beautiful way. Thank you so much. So Director Sevilla, this is for you. What role does your position play when it comes to engaging the community in terms of creating a productive environment for citizens and, more importantly, youth? And in your opinion, how does your role cultivate positive experiences in the community?
Thank you so much, Sergeant Shaw. I just want to start by saying I'm so excited again because we're with the School of Policy. My master's in public administration was from the School of Policy. So it warms my heart. Bachelor's in communications, all FIU. I am a Panther. So I want to say that with pride because at the end of the day, your foundation is so important. And I want to mention these particular things in particular about who, go Panthers. You know, how everything began for me because it has been an opportunity that has allowed me to contribute to the city and be able to deliver this answer to you. So, you know, coming from FIU, had my stint in corporate America, working for Louis Vuitton, Moet and Hennessy, and working with their brand development on the spirits brands of Hennessy starting and Moet and Chandon, and leaving there thinking, oh, I love government. I wanted to be able to contribute to government and basically re-engineer government with my corporate principles. Well, you know, that was a joke, right? But what I took from that was the brand development side. And I didn't know I needed that. That foundation was so key because the city where we stand right now, the City of Miramar, this facility that I oversee for the Cultural Affairs Department is only 12 years old. And being that it's 12 years old, it was new in the game, in the scheme of the arts and the arts and what the economy represents. And how all that, when you talk about an ecosystem, there's an ecosystem with arts agencies in both in Dade and Broward County. And so Miramar was starting to join that. And when they're joining that, they're joining the destination, they're joining an idea of they identifying, it became a place to identify the city with, identify a reason to come into the city. And those are some key things when you talk about how cities thrive. So while we heard from, oh my gosh, Major Smith, you're amazing. I was just sitting here beaming with pride and so proud of having you a part of the city and how you contribute as well as ACM Gail. And the answer is just, you know, it was just amazing, you know. And Tennille, if you're still listening, that was just awesome to know, you know, how things are starting to beam. But when you start thinking about why people come here, why people work here, why people play here. The cultural center was key to that. First thing I did, I helped brand it with Where Community and Culture Converge. That saying is so powerful because it's pretty simple, but when you fill in the blank with the values of that, it makes all the sense. So I'm proud to say that there's a 20 million plus investment in the development of this facility. And when we invested in that, we wanted to make sure, when you talked about the youth, when you talked about the families, when you talked about corporations, and just how everybody comes together and uses the space. So it's the obvious space for some. You get the arts. We knew we would be able to deliver the performing arts and educate people from that standpoint, but we also made it a blank canvas that corporations and other entities could come in and learn something from it. So there are times within the programming of the year that we get to actually make things make sense, especially during our heritage months. We're right now in June, which is Caribbean American Heritage, and we're able to have this key exhibit, which is you're not gonna get it anywhere but in the city of Miramar. And it's an exhibit of Basil Watson's maquettes, which is a term referring to his smaller sculptures. So, and Basil Watson, actually, he just developed the first, commission of peace for Atlanta of a Martin Luther King's statue. And even though he's a Caribbean American native of Jamaica, his legacy and his ability to connect to the United States happened by commissioning other pieces of the United States. So he has a lot of Olympic statues and a lot of statues that are associated with culture here. So that exhibit is sitting in the city of Miramar right now in the Anson Family Art Gallery. And that's the kind of credibility we've gained over the time that I've been here, and to defend and define why Where Community Culture Converge. We've decided, and COVID was a blessing for me. It was an opportunity. I know some people say, while it was a very negative time, and again, even my family was impacted with losses from COVID, but it was a time that we were able to step back from our spaces and look at our organization. How can we better, like ACM Gaya said, what can we do not only to protect the institution if we go through that again, but how can we deliver better to the community? And I took that time with the staff. We got into a huddle, and what we've been known for, we've done big shows and key exhibits, but we wanted to really create a foundation that was sustainable. When I used that word earlier, it was key to me because I wanted to have legacy for this building, not when I'm standing here, but when I leave. And like many of my colleagues indicated, we're not going to be here forever. And what can I do that's going to be memorable for the city of Miramar that made sense? So for me, legacy is key. And I talk like that to the staff. So not only they were reminded why we're doing it, but how their contributions make sense, because that's key. And when you do that, everyone is at the table. So we've been able to add cultural classes. So now we have adults doing ballet at the cultural center. And we have also very key summer classes that we're doing with the kids, with the youth. We have had a thriving summer camp program. This year, we try to be a little bit more cautionary with summer classes, and we will return to definitely going after the summer camp again. But, from the perspective of just the foundation has changed now. Now we have all these great things that people have another reason to say why they come and why they invest in a center beyond a large show, which we will continue doing as well. So when I use the term Where Community and Culture Converge, everyone in the city, not only that I advocate when I liked Assistant City Manager's words, advocacy, I advocate from the spaces. It's easy for me to say it's fluidly to say why people come, why people stay, and why people play in the city of Miramar, because of the things that we're doing and allowed to do. I'd like to say that I'm a very lucky person, because a lot of people sometimes, and our city manager speaks in this manner, he's like, there's different types of leaders. A lot of people don't get to create something. And I am very thankful for that opportunity. I was able to be a part of the team that helped create the cultural center. And when you're part of a team that creates something, you can look back at your mistakes and see how you can change it, how you can make things better, and not wallow in a situation that keeps you stuck. Which, innovation, these words have, the key with this facility is that not only have we been able to look at it programming, but we also look at the state of our equipment that we've had. Every equipment goes through its life cycle. We're at a point now that we're looking back, making sure that we're ready for the next century, with the facility, ready for not only the performance aspect, but for entities with advancing the banquet halls with WebEx, and allowing people to come in and work while they're able to do their program, whatever the activity that they need to do, as a blank space, for that bride that may want to find our space memorable, to use our technology as well, because we are also a place where people make memories. So aesthetics are very key for that facility. The technology is very key for that facility. And our understanding of the strategic placement of programming. We like to stay relevant. Having Basil Watson there during the month of June is intentional. It's strategic. It's not done by chance. By the fact that we do different programs, we deal with artists in residencies, and we pay those artists. So what does that mean? We're linked to the economy. So we are contributing to the economy as well for artists. During the pandemic, when people were losing their jobs, people were still working because of the Cultural Center. When we went into virtual mode, and we're able to supply opportunities and jobs. So we're conscious of that. Sometimes we're all the things performing arts, and sometimes we are a vehicle and a portal for a platform for key messages, So we've had the mayor do his State of the City at the Cultural Center, as an example. So, we know who we are in terms of the building's capabilities, and we're not ashamed to say, that, we are all of these things. And when we mentioned the 2021 All-America City, it was like the coolest thing to talk about how the facility is used, why we built this facility, to really advocate for the diversity and inclusion. I mean, when you look at the census data and you look at Miramar, now you can see a very diverse community. And even my staff alone, I'm from the island of Grenada. I have Colombians on my staff. I have Cubans on my staff. I have, Jewish on my staff, a Jewish personnel on my staff. And when you look at all those perspectives, they add, I love it. I love the diversity. The diversity is in my staff, and it's a reflection of the community. So we were able to add to that dialogue, add to the application confidently for the city, because what we're doing is real, it's tangible, and it is something you definitely want to be a part of. Like Timil mentioned, we're not, one of the things that the city does, where allows us to be greater than we are. So, in the book, when I just touch on my personal life, the certain experiences that I've had has allowed me to develop a piece called The Ambitious Collective. And that is a book. And I designed it to be a manual to life. And I know that's funny because it doesn't, there's no manual. But the book is on Amazon. It was an opportunity, because of everything that I've been through, everything that I've been able to contribute. FIU, I look at all the experience, the foundations that have given me the ability to look back and be reflective and be able to help someone else through the spaces, whether they're high and low. Sometimes people don't know they're by themselves. And, the fact that I'm doing that, the city applauds that as well. So, you have to look at the richness. I'm so honored to be amongst the richness of the contributors here, and to be able to say that what we're doing right now adds tremendous value on all levels. I'll be remiss if I don't mention one thing. One of the things that when we spoke about them, I like the words ecosystem. Those were key words. One of the things that we advanced on is we looked at the city and how we could connect, whether it be parks or community services, which actually houses our social services. It was very key to say, okay, you have this $20 million asset here. How does that connect and contribute to some of those captive audience that we have? So we have a captive audience in our seniors. We have a captive audience in our VPK, where we have the young, very young Mira Marbles Academy. And it was I looked at the building, because we have this diverse team, what can culture for me means a lot more. It's not just the performing arts. It's an opportunity for us to be able to say, we can contribute and make the youth and the seniors, give them access to the world. So we started a program called Cultural Start, where we plug right into the Miramarvel's Academy, and the kids come over to field trips where we lead them to a country. So they get in, and the staff is greeted. They're in traditional garb, whether we're going to India or we're going to China, and they walk in, and we use the theater to take them on a flight out of Miami International Airport and land in, India. And we bring in, traditional people to actually teach them not only about the culture, but about the world. So those are the types of things. And it doesn't cost the parent $1 more, but they're getting the value of plugging in their investment in not only their child, but the child's future, and they're expounding their perspective. Those are some ways that we connect. Those are tangible gains that people get because they are here in the city of Miramar.
Wow. You just blew me away. I think your book title kind of describes our panel. It's called The Ambitious Collective, right?
Exactly. You can't be by yourself.
You're ready to go on tour now. That's what I want to say. You're ready to go on tour. This was phenomenal. Absolutely. And I think one of the key takeaways, Dr. Sylvia, you said, we are who we are. And just by speaking to all of you lovely ladies, you know who you are. You know who you are. And it will only be my hope one day to really grow. And you said mentorship. And I will be knocking on those doors. And one of my first mentors, Major Smith, just thank you so much. But what a phenomenal panel. What exquisite answers. Most definitely, I thank you all for touching on Surfside. I know we wanted to dive a little bit more, but you already touched on it. And based on what you described, I mean, absolutely, we get a beautiful consensus of how each of you, in your own perspective and own positions, can support that type of community tragedy. And I just thank you all for touching on that. And they are our neighbors to the south. And thank you all so much for blessing us with some words about that community. Dr. Calvayo, I see you up on the scene. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you so much. And thank you all just for being such phenomenal panelists, and definitely for our moderator, Sergeant Shia Williams. You knocked it out of the park. Fantastic job. For all of our attendees and those following on Facebook Live, I would love to hear about opportunities that you have for our youth, either through service hours, internships for our students, opportunities, because again, Miramar just sounds like such a dynamic community that I'm sure there are many that are looking to find opportunities to get involved as well.
Sure, I can take that one and then pass it on to the panelists. Actually, the Miramar Police Department, we have a partnership with the Urban League of Broward County. So we have a lot of events that's not just sponsored by us, but we also partner with the Fort Lauderdale Police Department. Coral Springs is really big, where we actually do youth and outreach police dialogue, and they do get community service hours for it. So what they can do is I'll put my email down in the chat box if you want to email me, if you want to be just a participant. We have providers such as Henderson Health. We work with the Pay Center for Girls. We also work with the Miramar High School's Criminal Justice Magnet Program. So we have an ample amount of opportunities to volunteer, even if not through our agency, through our other sponsors. And so hopefully I'll see some of you soon. I'll drop my email inside the chat box. Any of the other panelists, if you have any volunteer opportunities for the youth or outreach, please share with us.
Yeah, we have some in human resources. I'll also add my email. We welcome youth volunteers. We love them. We love developing them. We also work with CAPAL. We have students with CAPAL that come to HR, and also we go to their school and teach them pre-COVID, after COVID, well, during COVID. Now we're on WebEx now. but please, I'll put my information in the email. Please contact me anytime.
Thank you.
If I could, oh, go ahead, Director Sylvia.
Sorry, we're in the process right now. We have a full service kitchen at in the cultural center as part of its key amenities. And in that kitchen, we really do cook. So one of the initiatives that we're looking at is food and beverage intern. We're in the process of developing that right now and working with the School of Hospitality, because we know how signature you guys are in the community with the Food and Wine Festival. I mean, there's nothing better than FIU. So we're actually looking to allow someone not only an aspect to, it's not just about cooking, but just learning the business behind how we administer. So we'll be coming around to FIU very shortly with the details of that. And we're working with HR to do so. Thank you, ACM Gail.
You're welcome. And what I was going to add is that the contact for Tennille DeCoste, she's in HR. So that contact will actually funnel opportunities throughout the city. But I wanted to also say that we work with interns in social work, because we have a social services department that is very instrumental in working with the community. And we also use social workers from there. We also have an adult daycare facility that's run by the City of Miramar. And we work with universities to have interns in that program also. I also wanted to mention the aspect of apprenticeship, not just internship, but apprenticeship in the area of water and wastewater. So a contact with the Human Resources Department will actually get you into the different facets of internship and apprenticeship opportunities in the City of Miramar.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know definitely a lot of our partners from African Diaspora Studies, from Criminology, Criminal Justice, and of course, my own Department of Public Policy and Administration just feel like this would be great opportunities for our students, and we look forward to exploring more how we can continue to develop those partnerships.
Yeah, I would also just like to add before we move on, at the police department, we do have volunteers as well. We're always looking for those that are interested in administrative responsibilities, code ranger program, they assist our code compliance officers, citizens on patrol. So if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to Sergeant Shaw, and I think she's already provided her information in the chat. And by the way, we are hiring for police officers. www.miramarpd.org/join. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I posted in the chat, there's a link to download on the full bios. And in the last page of that, you'll also find the recruitment flyer for the Miramar Police Department. So please share that within your networks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Caraballo.
We did have one question in the Q&A. France Williams asked, what opportunities and challenges emerged for your roles given the events of 2020 and 2021? And part of this was covered earlier, but Major Smith mentioned the ability to engage individuals in conversation as one example.
Dr. Caraballo, when he say the events, are we speaking in terms of COVID or in terms of social justice reform? Because we had two major events.
It could be the emergent, I think definitely it's hard to separate them because they both had such an impact. So either, I guess, aspect you'd like to address.
Well, I think Major Smith did a lovely job of explaining, and so did ACM Gail with dealing with COVID, and Major Smith dealing with all of the policy implementations we've had with the 8K weight since all of the incidents. One of the things I can respond on that I personally do is that we engage in youth and law enforcement dialogue. What does that mean? We actually sit with youth in the community and we take police officers and we facilitate a peace circle. And it's a Native American practice. We go around the circle and we literally ask the toughest questions anyone can ask law enforcement. We give those students a platform at that time to open up and say, why? Why? Do officers stop me because I'm Black? Do officers stop me because you believe all juveniles are bad? And we have officers to answer those questions. And our goal through that, in terms of if you want to connect it to all of the civil unrest, is to start building these relationships that we've lost. So Major Smith touched on engaging the community. We have HOA meetings every month where those HOA residents can ask our community resource officers, but why? I think part of our big responsibility is starting to be transparent in terms of explaining why. Everyone in this world want respect, and how do they want it in terms of just telling them why. So that's something that we're really, really working hard on. We're connecting with our youth because they're the future. We're here today, make no mistake. And this is the consensus of the entire panelists. We're here today. You all will be here tomorrow. So it's our responsibility to ensure that you are all right. You have to take care of our grandchildren and our great grands. So we need you to be okay in these positions. So that's just one of the ways, Dr. Carabai, I can tell you, us at the Miramar Police Department, and thank God for our Chief Leonard Burgess. He allows us to go out in the community and do these things.
Sergeant Shaw, can I add something to that?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's critical that you said that a couple of folks that are on the line this morning, who might be FIU students today, but maybe city managers and assistant city managers tomorrow. Nobody anticipated a pandemic. We've been struggling with social justice issues for quite some time, and it culminated last year. However, from a standpoint of a pandemic, when it comes to revenues, nobody anticipated when we adopted a budget that we would have to tighten our belts and be stringent, considering that revenues, pretty much dried up in some areas. And so as public policy majors and as future leaders, you're really going to have to be nimble and understanding that when you're faced with this, now what? So you may need to go back into your operation and say, hey, we need to cut back on these things. We need to curtail these things, spending in these areas. We're losing revenue in this area. So how do we balance it on the other end? Because you're required to have a balanced budget. You can do nothing else. And so how do we maintain our human resources so that we keep food on everybody's table while still having a balanced budget and still maintaining the fiduciary responsibility we have to current and past workforces and to our residents? So as public leaders, I implore everyone to just try to always understand the different facets of the organization that you're in and always be poised and ready to lead with change whenever you have to from any standpoint.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, ACM Gill. Actually, you did exactly what I was hoping for. We wanted to get those words of wisdom and some advice from the panelists. So thank you for leading that off. Major Smith, do you have any words of advice for the community?
Thank you. This has just been just such a wonderful opportunity. And I'm just excited that I've had an opportunity to work with all of my colleagues who are just really, really wonderful. And oftentimes we pass each other and we really don't sit and have these individual conversations, but it really gave me more of an in-depth look at who my colleagues are and just how wonderful and powerful and knowledgeable they are. So thank you all. You all did such an amazing job. What I would say to those that are interested in coming into civic leadership, particularly state and local government, is that lean on those that have something to offer you and are willing to share. I would also say, learn from the greatest, but also learn from those that you would not particularly consider leaders, because they teach you. You want to learn what to do, and you also want to learn what not to do. But just use every opportunity as a learning opportunity for you. Also, particularly for public safety, we're just in a really difficult time right now. ACM Gill mentioned about budget and funding. We too experience some of the fallout when the city doesn't generate enough revenue in terms of budgeting, and it can also impact your staffing. But what we cannot do is provide excuses to the citizens that we serve, because they expect for us to be there 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so you do have to be nimble, you do have to be innovative and flexible, and still be able to provide those services. So even me sitting here as a major the number 5 person in an agency of 311 personnel, sometimes I may have to actually go out and get in a car and answer calls for service. So regardless of your position, at the end of the day, remember that you are still a part of the team, and your team is going to be depending on you just like you're depending on them. So always be willing to give back. And for those that are discouraged by what we've seen presented in the media in terms of public and community and police relations, particularly our people of color, I encourage you all to try to take a look at joining a police force. It is really, or it can be, a rewarding experience in different ways for different people. Sitting here today, I hope that I have some impact on possibly some young ladies that are interested in law enforcement and they thought that perhaps it wasn't achievable because of the proverbial glass ceiling. Anything is possible, but you have to be a part of the change that you want to see. So bring all of those great ideas that you have, all of those solutions that you have, bring that energy into law enforcement and help us to continue to move forward and help this nation heal, because we are moving into the next chapter. And I do think that it's going to be the best chapter that has ever been written, but we certainly need your help to do that. And so those are my words of wisdom. And again, thank you all for having me as a panelist today.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Pleasure. Thank you all again so much. I know as we're starting to wrap up, we just did have a few more questions in the Q&A. I'm not sure if we wanted to address a few of them. Some of you kind of already did mention if there's any that you notice in the Q&A that you would like to address in particular.
So they are asking, well, the ACM Gail and Major Smith touched on a question on advice for the next generation. And I most certainly hope that the next generation know that they are welcome, and we are here, and we are excited to see what you have to bring. And you can stand on our shoulders, as I am standing on Major Smith's shoulders, ACM Gail's shoulders, Director Sevilla's shoulders, and Director DeCoste. They said and they mean it, and I am a living example. They have not budged, and I am sturdy as ever. And after this panel, I feel really good with these beautiful ladies. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I guess as we conclude, any final thoughts? Again, just would like to thank our incredible sponsors as well for this event. We really do appreciate you. And we encourage you to follow along with us at the Ferré Institute and our upcoming programs. And I know this is only the first of our collaborations, but I look forward to many more opportunities of working with the City of Miramar, and really want to thank you all just for your time, your expertise, and just words of wisdom. It is really appreciated.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Caraballo, for hosting us and allowing us to have a partnership with you, with the Maurice Ferré Institute, which is so exciting. I look forward to working with you in the future. I actually have other people in the city now that's like, FIU. I'm like, let's go. And that's all because of you and your awesome leadership. And just so people know, Dr. Caraballo is also a mentor to me. I am a lucky woman right now. I am staring at just stars.
Now, I should mention it because, again, the power of mentoring. Sergeant Shaw reached out to me on LinkedIn. So it just goes to show, build your network and reach out, take a leap of faith. You never know where it may lead to. We struck up a friendship, a mentorship that ended up cultivating in this panel, and look forward to many other opportunities to collaborate. But it just goes to show, reach out, build your network. Even though public administration is a very broad field, it's also a very tight-knit field. So we're all working together for the greater good. We are a community in South Florida. So I encourage you to connect with one another, join us on social media. Again, follow each other on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or whatever your preferred platform is. But most importantly, connect and realize that we're in this together, and we'll move forward working together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I wanted to just end my piece by saying that I hope, the young people that are watching and listening to this cross section of government, I think that probably when you're in school, you really don't know the vastness of opportunities that can be presented. Sometimes corporate is the only answer when you're coming out of an institution, because you just think that's the most natural thing to do. But I think this panel has really shown that not only the depth of government and but its ability to contribute from all layers and levels. So I hope that we've delivered that in some way, that you may not even believe that this is, you know, there are ways for you to contribute and offer your gifts that don't need to necessarily sit in the private sector. So with that being said, I am very thankful for my opportunity, and again, to be amongst my esteemed colleagues. Thank you, Sergeant Shaw. You did an awesome job organizing this. And Dr. Caballo, again, go Panthers.
Sergeant Shaw, I want to close out something real quick if I can. First, I want to commend all the ladies on this panel. You guys are amazing. I learned a lot about Director Kamasha. I didn't know she's an author, but I will be supporting you because I'm all about supporting. I want to also say, somebody taught me when I was climbing up the ladder and going through government, when you get in a position, when somebody helped you, don't forget to help others. Always help others reach their goal, because you don't know how you can change somebody's life. Yes, you'll have your ups and downs, but always remember to help others. I am a true believer that God places you in positions to help others. I think that's why I'm in the position I am in now, why I came to the city, why ACM Gale's in her position, Director Kamasha, and Major Smith. So I just say, closing, that, you know, human resources is my passion. Everybody has a passion. I'm all about helping people. So if you need me, you have my email, especially if you want a job, especially if you want to come volunteer, especially getting hired with our police department, because as you heard, Shalita, we do have the best police department ever in Broward County, let me say. So thank you again.
Thank you. We actually have another question, so we're rolling, and I don't know who want to take this, but the question is from the panel in terms of strategies. Do you have any useful advice when it comes to working in groups, especially diverse groups and organizations, which is a skill that the FIU students said is very important for college? If anyone wants to touch on that.
I really would like to take that, because it's funny. As the lady spoke, I thought about the audience that we have this morning. And in college, you know, we have a lot of group projects. Sometimes we like working in the group we have, and sometimes we don't. I would really want to say, become unwaveringly good at something, even if it's just one thing, because what an organization is really just a really great big group project. And the different roles that we play in those groups, it just means that you have job titles and you're compensated for it. But it's really just an extension of a group project. And you must play your part well to add value to an organization. The value that you add is what's going to determine your level of compensation. And I think Jim Rohn said it well when he said compensation is dependent on the value you bring to an organization, not how long you've been there, not how many positions you've held, not what college you went to. It's really what value do you bring to the organization? What part do you play in this great group project that we call government? And so it's taking that group project concept, bringing it to the organization, making sure you know what part you play well. You may be a numbers person and not a writer. Don't try to write then, because you're not going to add value. You may be the person who's a good researcher, then research. Don't try to crunch numbers, because then you won't do a good job of it. You will suffer for it. Compensation won't be there and you won't be adding value. So again, if I could say it in one sentence, be unwaveringly good at something, even if it's just one thing.
Woo, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, ACM Gal. Okay, Dr. Caraballo, back to you.
Thank you again so much. We really appreciate you all joining us on this Saturday morning. It looks like the rain's starting to clear up a little bit, so hopefully we get to enjoy the day. Again, thank you all to our panelists, to our moderator. You did a fantastic job. And thank you for all of our attendees and those watching on Facebook. Please reach out to us. Again, we look forward to seeing you at our next installment of the Civic Leadership and Service Series. And we're here to help and grow together as a community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.